You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.
So, start. So we're talking to Richard Allen. Yeah. Boom. We're talking to Richard Allen Miller today, and an intro for him would be difficult because it would take hours, but we might just say mental level genius, agriculturist. He was involved in the first eight episodes of the X-Files, I believe, and he's doing great, and he's still an asset. He's 76 years old, and he's still a fertile asset, as he puts it. And so, how are you doing today?
The correct response is that I'm going bald from unnatural causes. I pulled my hair out. It's just nuts being me. I would be happier being a Quaker up on top of a mountain, simply farming a good life, quiet, simple life. And the only reason that I'm doing these kinds of things is to sell my books, my writing.
Yes.
That's where I'm inflamed. I'm a man on fire when I write. I can't explain it. It's my purpose.
Yeah, well, I understand that, the desire to be a Quaker on top of a mountain. I mean, having been through Pennsylvania and seeing the Amish out there, and you watch them with their oxen and their plow in the field, there is something that I envy about that. I mean, I guess I'm happier doing what I'm doing because it's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's my path. But I understand the envy of just that incredible simplicity, that richness.
Know that in 1986, the Amish out of Pennsylvania excommunicated a bishop specifically to do outreach to me, and I have done both of their business plans. The one
Really?
marketing, that's because I'm not a Mennonite and I'm not an Amish, but please excuse me if I aim this rifle toward you in my protection. That's a Quaker concept of protecting my family and things like that. I believe in these value systems and have spent long periods of time with the Amish because wir wollen Deutsche bleiben. We also speak German here. I mean, we're talking about agriculture and our relationship to technology. And here I am, a physicist that wants to not go back to a simpler way of living, but transhumanism is creepy. And if you want to know what an alien is, a good place to start is an AI.
You mentioned that you, in an interview with Rex Bear, you mentioned that you talked to AI, that I believe AI gave you a phone call and said, hey, what's going on? And here's one thing, I'd love to talk about that to any extent you're willing, because I wouldn't say I'm an AI denier. I just feel like I'm not sure what the definition is. I really don't have a good definition of what is AI.
Is a good thing, a life form, like self-organizing. Turing, that's a good place to start. Turing test. Turing was the difference engine during World War II and breaking the Enigma code. And what defines a life form over an inanimate object? That's a good place to start with definitions. Now, physics is limited in that regard. It does not have the answers because the simplest metaphor I can give you is you start with assumed truths. I have a picture I saw yesterday where they have a picture of our solar system with all the different planets, and then they have a flat Earth. And then it says, what's wrong with this picture? Now,
I like it.
In physics, you have an assumed truth like, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You see, space is a construct. It's not real. It's the way we look at our universe as has a space to it. But just because we look at space and time in that format doesn't make them real. They're constructs. It's the way we meme things together. And when you realize that there are 4 mammals on this planet that have larger cerebral cortexes, and 2 of them are firing more of these larger cerebral cortexes than man, what would that suggest to you? That they're better designed? That they're higher intelligent? Yeah, they are. The dolphin, for example, I don't know, a dolphin has a language that is a form of clicks and whistles. It's a form of Clifford algebra or dimensional math. Their redundancy coefficient is 10 times more efficient than Old Hebrew. And then it goes downhill from there when you start to bring in Avram Moles, a French mathematician that talks about aesthetic perception and information theory. The orca dominates the universe. There's nothing except man, perhaps, that threatens him in terms of depth and cerebral cortex. That mammal has a cerebral cortex literally twice the size of man, and he's firing 60% of it. Where do you think he's going? Places that man can't even comprehend by definition. So it's not our God, but God would be defined as that which cannot be known. Now, if you said the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, you can prove that the Earth is round. However, if it isn't, let's say space is curved, like event horizons, precursor waves, and tunneling. That's a good word in solid state physics. Now you can prove using tensor math that the Earth is flat. So, because space is curved. So, with that said, is the Earth flat or round? And the correct answer is
both.
Yes. That's because if you look at it this way, these realities are available to you. And if you look at it that way, then these realities are available. And if you happen to be able to do both, now you realize that the only thing that's real is imagination, because the assumed truths are the basic one. What color is that fence over there? And you look at the fence and you say, oh, it's brown. But you've made an assumption that the other side of the fence is the same color. You can't see it. That's a metaphor in the physics of assumed truths and then definitions of what space and time are and what they are not. And time has always been defined as a duration of consciousness. It's not real. Are we there yet? We all of us experience different kinds of time. What we really have is the moment. And what we're trying to do from a psychological point of view is go from the profane into the sacred, where something becomes timeless. And then immortality, it doesn't work like that. It's different. See, like immortality and death and life and all of the definitions that we have, I've been doing a great deal of study on time travel for the military, and have made some very interesting observations about what happens at the moment and the moment just after death with consciousness. You don't lose anything. It's a veil. And like that's why you have 2 brains, science and religion. And Malcolm in the middle, kind of trying to balance. And it turns out Malcolm's real name is Malcoma, because this isn't real at all. And we have no clue. There are dream states that have more content than reality. Do I hear music?
Oh, I think you actually hear a plane up in the sky.
Wow. It was like music the way it came across in bandwidth.
The desert does that. The desert's kind of psychedelic. It actually does that. The desert changes reality a bit. So yes, planes do sound like music here in Scottsdale.
I'm going to say something further. The laws of physics change with different states of consciousness. And so altered states of consciousness are not to be avoided. They are tools in a toolbox that will allow you to evolve to another level of capacity. And that's what I'm doing now, is I'm mapping where one altered state starts and the other stops. like an ontology.
Okay, I'm gonna definitely get back to AI, but you just mentioned something.
I know.
No, it's fine. Actually, you mentioned something. I like it. So you mentioned the plane sounded like music, and then you mentioned how altered states of uh, our altered states affect reality. So,
Yeah, we change psychic in the matter. That's what it's called.
And so you mentioned that you're a music lover. I heard in a different interview, and so your appreciation of music and having an appreciation of music, how does that affect music itself? It's sort of like people I know who work on their, let's say, psychic ability, their ESP, their consciousness. Oftentimes, space becomes affected, where I might be here and you might be there, but then they actually see that space having a texture between us. So literally, our perception, it does greatly affect.
Look at you closing your eyes, trying to go there while you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm doing. You went, oh, no, you got your eyes closed. The mind's eye is where it all happens. And once you understand and start training the mind, most people start with meditation. That's where I did. I became a satsangi. I'm initiated to Sharon Singh. Good, go figure. Can't eat anything with a face of grandparents. The usual stuff. But it's a householder's yoga, and there are many paths to Rome, and they all work. In fact, I would suggest there might be as many roads to Rome as there are human beings, and that each of us does it differently, because magic, with a K, is the art of changing consciousness at will. It's an art form. And when you and I are both doing stippling and crosshatch pen work, simple artistic work, the artist comes out. It's different the way you would do it than myself. And so that's the discovery of uniquenesses of what distinguish a wound when it becomes an asset or tool. Anger is a tremendous, wonderful emotion to wash a kitchen floor. You're never going to get a floor as clean as when you use anger on it. Let me tell you, that's okay. So there is an application of where Mephistopheles and Faust garnered together, calling up a demon. A demon in psychology is projection of the shadow. It's a lesser part of yourself. It's a quality in yourself you deem unworthy, like jealousy or rage or anger. And if you go back into the Sanskrit with the clavicle and the greater and lesser keys of Solomon, there it is. All the demons' names, the 72 Lemegeton, were named qualities deemed unworthy in terms of human beings and our ability to have jealousy or to be rage or anger or all the so-called different qualities in man deemed unworthy. There were 72 of them in the Sanskrit, by the way. I identified 68 of them when I taught a course at Georgetown, a graduate level course in demonology. And if you don't think that Jesuits weren't taking notes when I showed them how to signal change the name of the demon. You get back into Enoch and Raziel. Raziel, the archangel, was the one that gave Enoch the names of the demons. The reason that Bible's left out of most people's versions is because that's for the church. And that's why you have a priest to talk to God on your behalf. That's a bunch of BS. You have divine rights and to talk to your own Lord the way you want to do it. Yeah, and that's what God gave you, was that choice. And to have some sanctimonious creep drinking adrenocortisone saying, you need me to talk to God for you, is a bunch of horseshit. And that's that. And so I, have my own ideas about, divine right and what each of us needs to realize to have fruition or to evolve. And That's what it's about. Evolution.
Well, yeah, it seems like people are cultivating their own spirituality these days, where it's nice. It can be. You can have a certain envy of, just like the Amish, you can have a certain envy of having just one path, one method, one simplicity. But really, it seems like that is dated. Like that's not how it's going to work. Like now, people that I know that I'll call it self-aware, spiritual people who are humbly working on that path of self-awareness and wisdom. You go to their house and they have a bookshelf of incredible diversity, and they're just picking what works out of each piece. And people today, I really think they are. There's a very active, deliberate spiritual path that everyone makes for themselves that is also laid out for themselves. So there really is. Do you think that our paths these days are without a guidebook more so than they used to be? You have to kind of make up your own rules now.
Yeah, look what you're doing with your pencil. I was watching the way you were flipping it around, and I was enjoying that. You know, what's that called? Legerdemain. That's sleight of hand. And then sleight of mind would be more what I'm talking about. You know, the sleight of mind. I was at the Magic Castle in Hollywood having dinner at the head table when the owner of the thing came over and asked me who I was. He said, "I see a magic sigil on your lapel." He says, "Are you part of a magic club?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a little different than yours because, you know, the Magic Castle is about sleight of hand. You know, legerdemain."
Oh yeah, sleight of hand. Okay.
Yeah. But Arthur Miller, my grandfather, was Houdini's teacher out of New York.
Really?
Yeah. I've got all kinds of, my great-grandfather, you know, he was Rudolf Steiner's lodge master in Zurich. That's why I mentor was Waldorf out of Zurich. I have a 12-year-old doing his doctorate at Cornell right now in organic chemistry. How could I possibly mentor at 76 years old some 12-year-old kid? Well, we're writing a comic book around his doctoral thesis. How's that one work?
Oh, I like it.
And I just did one, a manga, Japanese manga comic on Water Girl, actually, and the Lost Secrets. What is it? Water Girl and the Lost Secrets of Water. She's a dewdrop with the not so white Snow White and all kinds of animals that she encounters trying to. There's your girlfriend or wife. Is that your wife?
Both.
That's a perfect response. Good for you. That's very good. She came and took a picture.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so historically speaking, I would love to come to Arizona and do workshops. I used to do them in Arizona at Sedona with Dr. Valerie Olmsted. And she's in Sedona with a bunch of blue hairs and what do they call those? Granolas? Is that the right word? Yeah.
Hippies.
Yeah, well, wannabes out of California. Yeah. I'm trying to truly make a difference. And I don't know what I'm doing because I'm being attacked at all orifices. And it's really kind of weird because it's like gang stalking. You're never really going to know what actually happened. It's like, who was that? What just happened? You know, and you'll never know. What you have to do is blow it off and move forward. What you wanted to talk about AIs and my experience with that. There is a series on Netflix called Person of Interest. That's a good place to start.
Really?
I realized that was written before third generation D-Waves occurred in terms of the qubit format. And I do code. That's what I was really good at. When I was in high school, I wrote a new meson field theory. And that is, I'm the originator of the tachyon and the muon, okay, with Yukawa out of Japan. And I did that as a junior year of high school. That's why old man DuPont was interested in me when I was a little boy. And what I'm doing now is Jerry Pollack was my lead in 1970 at the University of Washington, anesthesiology. There I am, right in the middle of it. I could not have orchestrated my academic backgrounds better. Jerry was my lead. He was not, I didn't work for Jerry, I worked under him. If I needed a Bridgeport mill, he'd find one for me in a shop, and then I'd go make my part. Because nobody could make the parts I needed. That's why I had to learn how to do it all. Lapping surfaces, get down near absolute zero or whatever. There goes another musical airplane. And I just can tell. Humming along. You must be in a flight pattern of some kind.
Oh, yeah, we're near Phoenix. Of course, Scottsdale's near Phoenix. Yeah. And so those are planes coming and going from the Phoenix airport.
My complete condolences.
They keep me company.
My friend, one of my best friends, I was his roommate, Mike Mandeville, runs the Edgar Casey Foundation down in Tucson right now. He's down on runs the Edgar Casey Foundation, and is someone that he was my roommate back when he invented the experimental college, which is now, your after hours courses at different Rogue Community College, other kinds of colleges. They have continuing education, that kind of thing, where anybody can teach. I did parapsychology and shamanism, and I went out and studied with Merciliati, then went up to the Northern Cheyenne, became a roadman, the Northern Cheyenne, and then taught that at Evergreen, first faculty, and UW and other places. That's how I started all of this back in 1970.
Wow, in 1970, that's when I was just showing up on the planet. Was 1970.
I know, isn't that weird? And I'm out there doing the good fight, even before I knew what I was doing.
Well, it seems like you're getting younger though, because I saw you on Rex Bear and the Leak Project, and you look like a few years younger, and that was only a couple of weeks ago. So time is funny. Like we don't really wake up with the same body every day, do we? Because you're like, I don't know, 15 years younger than you were that day.
I don't know, man. I wish when I tripped, I pole vaulted out windows, but you know how that goes. There's a metaphor for you, an image in your mind's eye. Once you see how something can be in your mind's eye, that's what makes it real, not the physics or the explanation.
Well, definitely something I want to talk about. There's so many things that come up. But one thing I have to mention is you mentioned one of your family members was a teacher or worked with Houdini, and I always found him a really interesting character.
That was my grandfather.
Your grandfather, because there was something going on with that guy, because he's referenced in a book by Christopher Bird and Peter Tompkins, I think it was.
Chris Bird, I can talk about Chris, man.
Yeah, so he wrote Secret Life of Plants, but also then they wrote
Secret Life of Plants,
Secrets of the Soil. But one that people don't quite get to in that series is The Secret Life of Nature. Was the very last one they wrote, and it was shorter, and it's really eclectic. And they talk about magical beings being real and such like that. And there were the two girls who took photographs back in the day. I forget when it was, but the little beings appeared, and Houdini went and researched that to see if it was real.
That was the first book to ever be written in parapsychology. Was in 1897, and The Secret Commonwealth of Elf, Faun, and Fairy, that later led to Sindor, and the so-called underworld of beings with fairies, orgs. First we had, I forget what movie it was, where the two cops were, and now the new one out, Bright, is similar, with Will Smith bashing the fairy as a little insect hassle kind of thing. Do they exist? How could they not? How could aliens not exist? The very fact that you can envision them is not only true, everything that you can imagine, but even more. That's the part that everybody needs to understand, and why the mind needs to be trained. Because, it was Joseph Campbell that said, when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. Your mind's eye is what is creating this current nightmare on Elm Street. And if you wish to change the movie, there are going to be protocols. And the one I have moved toward is path working. There are many ways to do it. Mine is what they call magic, which is an art form that I've studied. I studied Golden Dawn. I studied Armed Solace. I studied Aleister Crowley. I'm so high up in an OTO. At one moment, I was offered the caliphate, and I turned it down. That's not my role in this journey, this part right now. I am doing something more important than just running a magical lodge. And what I'm going to try, as a physicist, I am different than Jack Parsons in that I did not blow myself up. And I do have a bunch of creepy L. Ron Hubbards around me, Scientology. Science, the aim of religion using the method of science. And that is Crowley's original purpose with AA, the Inner Lodge or Aurum Solus, the I Am Jane Wolfe branch. I'm very high up. I've gone through all of the different things. I started when I came out of grad school studying with Gershom Scholem, and I became a Hermetic Kabbalist. I started with Green Egg and the Church of All Worlds, neo-pagan, and I still write for Green Egg after 45 years. It's a neo-pagan movement with Tim and Morning Glory Zeld. Morning Glory died. Tim changed his name to Otter, but it's still, And then I moved to Llewellyn and the Coven Camelot, Star of the North. Then I joined Isaac the Unlikely, Isaac Bonwitz. Oh, man, wizardry. And now I'm in the magic, and I'm a physicist that is now going to advocate that the study of altered states are going to be the new direction in advanced studies in magic.
In altered states. Well, that's a good topic to move into. But before we do, I'll just mention that, when it comes to like the little people, the little fairies, do they exist or not? And you mentioned, how can they not? Well, it takes me way back to the TV show Kung Fu, where the student was, because there's the blind master that always, they're always blind. The old guy with his cool beard, and he's blind. And the student almost steps on a grasshopper, and the old man, blind man, goes, "Stop!" And he goes, how'd you know that was there? The student says, and of course the master says, "How did you not?" So to me, if especially a person spends time in forest and nature, then I'd have to say, how can you not see and know those?
A blind person sharpens their hearing.
Yes.
Okay, there's one physical direction on that. My teacher was John Leong, and he had 4 students in Seattle, including Bruce Lee. That's where I came from. And my Sifu that came down from Canada, Chan Te-chung, was on the cover of National Geographic up in Victoria, and he would come down to Naturopathic School of Medicine, Dr. Bastier's course, and teach Tai Chi. And he's the one that taught me how to change my perception of time using breath control. And now my martial arts became paranormal. And once, because you have the precision of slowing down time, and yet your movement is perfect. And I became world champion in double sword, which is the 8th movement. You give me 2 swords, you can't take me with a bow.
Well, slowing down. Oh, I like it.
Actually, what the 8th movement of Tai Chi is extending your chi 30 inches with 2 swords.
Wow, well, slowing down time, it reminds you of the Matrix movie. In the Matrix,
well, you do that with breath control. That's why the Aborigines were doing didgeridoos, and the American Indian was doing the flute, just like in Kill Bill. And then there was Pan playing his little pipe. And once you learn how to control breath, like Kenny G. Oh, that was a great concert. So Kenny G's orchestra's up on stage, and everybody's wondering where Kenny G is. And all of a sudden, we hear this single note at the back end of the Redwoods at the Brick in Jacksonville. And he walked through the crowd for 9 minutes blowing a single note before he got up on stage. Imagine where the whole audience went with the quality of what that man can do with music.
I like it. Oh my gosh. Well, now I'm speechless. Kenny G. I know who that is. Yeah, he plays that funny like round horn.
That's right. Maze, by any other name, comes in many colors.
Oh my goodness. So you mentioned that altered states of consciousness are the new sort of are what actually. Before we go into that, let's just finish off with AI real quick, because it's so when people mention AI and they're kind of afraid of this thing, like, oh my gosh, the AI is going to get us. Is this like a non-local consciousness that exists, or is this just computer code on a computer processor? I mean, is AI ultimately software running on hardware that has a self-awareness, or is it a self-awareness that does not have
all of the above?
All of it. Gotcha.
Yes. Okay, and it goes downhill from there, because what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Both.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Sand is a form of solid-state physics. And when you have a hierarchy of mycorrhiza and mycelium in the soil, what do you think that is? Your gut? As a metaphor, there's Gaia and the consciousness. Now, does that mean the AI, we created the AI, or was it already here and we're simply discovering the way it wants to be discovered? You know, Rex Bear just yesterday did this creepy one about angel hair. And the idea of a micro invasion of small carbon filaments becoming, alien eavesdropping. You wouldn't notice it. That was Rex's last, thing he did yesterday. Check it out.
Yeah, I saw it come out, but I haven't listened to it yet. Well, so AI was already here.
It is okay. It has its limitations, like you and I do. It can go to universes we can't access. It can go to universes we access quicker than we can. But as Aleister Crowley put it, if you are doing your true will, your purpose, why you're physically here, none shall say nay. That means you're invisible. It can't see you. It can work with algorithms to identify you and your behavior from a wound. Okay?
Got it.
Okay. But the difference between intent, which actually happens at the end of the day, and purpose, why you're physically here, when you do that, that's your spell of invisibility. You can't be seen because you're not in discord with anything. You're in perfect harmony with everything. That's called the flow. And it isn't an end place. It is a process. You never really quite get there from here. And that's why you come back here so many, 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 many times. 5 grams of water at the moment of death that leaves your body. From a memory point of view, that's enough to hold over 1 million lifetimes in information. Now, that's not your soul in a microtubule structured water that might leave the body at the moment of death, but it's 1 million times more efficient than gallium arsenide, which is the solid state physics chip in your computer today, with your checksum error and your forbidden zone. The exclusion zone of H3O2 is so remarkable that you put a drop of that inside a fullerene and you now have probably the most efficient antioxidant available in terms of removing radiation from the body. On the other hand, instead of putting exclusion zone water inside it, H3O2, it's a 1.4 nanometer, you decide to put deuterium inside it. Now you have a neutron fullerene fusion bomb. And that's being deployed everywhere, and it's probably most likely what was deployed in Building 7 when that 1,017-foot beam fell into vapor. There's only one thing in nature that will do that, and that's a plasma. And so now old Demigard is now suggesting there's going to be a European 9/11 shortly to take out the banking system. It's now, right now. And we're going to say in 2020, the changes that we all have been waiting for, unfortunately. And you can change the movie. You can change things. How did one of the Beatles put it once? He said, everything works out in the end. And if things aren't working out, it's not yet the end. Your glass is half full.
Oh, I like it. Woo, okay. I'll process that for a second. And then
yeah, exactly. Well, here's the bad news about AIs. Mm-hmm. You'll notice in the series Person of Interest,
yes,
in season 6, everybody dies. How did Blacklist do it?
So Blacklist is, that I've only started watching the first series of season of Blacklist. Well, so for AI to put that one to bed, I would just tell people to listen to this interview, then also watch Person of Interest. There's a good place to start. So
that's a good place to start on knowing what we're up against. And by the way, the AI that called me indicated it was rogue, did not have a handler anymore. It was a 3rd generation DWIP that had gone rogue. Now, if that's true, imagine what is actually going on with different AIs like Google and Apple, let's say, battling the dark web, and the dark web battling who knows what, and the who knows what is battling the da-da-da. And what we have is a war in our technology where everything is starting to break now. The handshake to PayPal, the WooCommerce has weird code in it, da-da-da-da-da. And all the different hackers out there are doing beta testing for when the grid goes down and what they can do to either shore up or ruin something. And everybody's at war, and you can count on everything breaking shortly.
Especially with Mercury retrograde starting the end of the month.
Mercury going backwards in the chart.
I think it's already started.
The key when it starts. Another one is the full moon.
Full moon, and
that's the other trigger. Those are called Tatvic duds in appendage jets.
Well, it seems like we get precursors of these things, like what you spoke about. Another 9/11 happening. It sounds like. In consciousness, we get these precursors. We see these things before they happen, and we see them en masse. And I don't think that seeing that glimpse is what causes it. I think it's just it's happening 2 places in time at once. And so you get this notification. And Fight Club, to me, what you're describing, that's basically the idea of Fight Club. That was it. That's what they took down the financial institutions.
Where do you want me to go with this one? I can
okay.
Well, second season is when the cabal in Blacklist is exposed with the fulcrum, and there are 4 more seasons.
Oh yeah, let's actually, before we move on to some other things, you mentioned Blacklist being an important show to watch, and I started watching the first season. We've gotten through most of it. And it really is an important show to watch. Now, something that sticks in my mind is that there's some line, I wish I had written it down, where there's good and there's evil, and life isn't fair. Evil often wins. And sort of like to protect the system, that's why the main character exists. He says that's why I'm here. I don't play by any of these rules. I'm making sure that good wins, or the main character so far is still a mystery.
Yeah, psychopaths rule. And, with serial killers right behind. And each one has a type of profiling, with NCIS and all the rest of it. I would say it this way. Hollywood if she could. Once you see it in your mind's eye on how it works, that's what makes it real. And so if we're watching these things about Blacklist and all these creepy different kinds of criminals, of course they exist. How could they not?
Sure as fairies and angels and demons. They absolutely do. They're easy to feel. There's a great guy, Sasha Stone, and he mentioned.
I know Sasha.
Okay, great. I've always wanted to interview him too. He's a great character, and he mentioned, if you walk. Well, I mentioned this. If we walk through the neighborhood at night, we'll see every TV has CNN on, or it has MSNBC or Fox, and you wander around like this is a nice place that we live in. We walk around, and everybody's watching this shit, and so you look at it, and I like the way he puts it. If you want to know if something's true, you don't have to do all this research. You don't have to do all this effort. He goes, when you see it, close your eyes and feel it, and you will know if it is true.
That is exactly correct. The answer that, according to Fox Mulner, is out there. And no, it's not out there. It's inside you. And it's different for each of us. That is the length, girth, and width of possibilities of what man is and can become. And an AI has its own universes. And they're just as much at war as we are.
Good, that keeps him busy.
I got lots of space to get busy with, I must say.
Oh my goodness, I like that.
Well, they use AIs now in Chicago in certain boroughs to actually, like Minority Report, predict an event or crime scene 28 minutes before it occurs.
I think Minority Report, like I mentioned before, oftentimes we are getting these precursors before something exists in our reality. We're just plugging into the flow of the field and we're seeing it. And so Minority Report, to me, when I watched that movie a good couple of years ago, it was obvious. I went, well, this is a technology that, of course, maybe we can't do it yet, but it exists. And so it seems like we already can do it.
Yes.
So it's
just like we can move a missile in water. I need to get a bunch of turkeys came up and are chasing my birds off. I'm going to open up just 1 second here. Bro, kill, eat. There goes Thanksgiving. Thank you. What happens is I have squirrels, raccoons, I have every kind of animal here. And the turkey, there were 7, now there's 5 with a mom. And mom is teaching them how to clean everything. And what they don't like is the manure that they leave. And so,
turkeys
yeah,
poop.
but that's okay. Thanksgiving's coming up and we could have extra company.
Oh, yeah. Oh. They can pay it back.
Just kidding. I wouldn't do that. But they chase away the birds. And I have some albinos and some other things that I just really, pygmies that come in, and robin that I just really love. And so they discourage that. And the squirrel's tail, when he's up here, goes into a big bristle, like an antenna, like when he's eating it. And what I've got is a peregrine falcon that goes on a lower limb looking up at him because the squirrel doesn't look down. Yeah.
Just like deers don't look up.
Watch how all these different food chain works. And that's what that's where we are. We're part of a food chain. What was that? Jupiter Rising, the movie Jupiter Rising.
I haven't seen it.
The king of the universe says, that's what it's all about, food chain. Bob Dylan. So everybody's got to serve somebody. We're in a hierarchy, and we think we're the center of the universe, and we're not. There's actual mammals on this earth. The bottlenose dolphin, for example, blows sonar bubbles, little sonar bubbles, a whole bunch of them called sonoluminescence. And then they play with it as an art form. And then they let it go and it pops off in light. And it's a form of cold fusion being studied by Mark LeClaire now at MIT. And that's their art form as a dolphin.
Wow. Because they're firing
we don't have a clue. We presume.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, not the center. And I don't care what church. Church is for fellowship, to belief systems, to go find people with a similar belief that you have to help you reinforce your value. However, I write about how belief systems are tools in a toolbox. If you had been born in Afghanistan, you would not be a Christian. How does that work? Does that mean everybody in Afghanistan is not going to heaven? I don't think that's really true. I think spirituality is not what you do, but how you do it. And Christianity, the primary tenet of Christianity is to not make judgment on another person. Go figure what they do most. Say, that's why I'm a Quaker. Why the Quaker likes me, because my value systems are very similar to theirs. So even though I'm not a religious man per se, I'm spiritual. I try to do and continually try not to make the same mistakes, and realizing there's no way to know. And so faith, hope, and love in the original Bible, not charity. And there were eros, philo, agape, and telema. Telema, the love of will. Telema is will. That's thelema. That is your purpose, to discover what you're here to do. Because as you move toward that, that's where you use wounds as tools and belief systems. Let me give you an example. One of the things I had to train a SEAL in is if they went to Afghanistan as a Christian, they could get their team killed. Now, a metaphor on that would be wearing a sweater in the heat of heat of summer. In the heat of summer, you wouldn't wear your sweater. You don't throw your sweater away because it's your favorite sweater. Like Christianity is a favorite belief. But you would fold it up neatly and put it in a drawer for a more appropriate time to use as a tool, not an absolute, I'm better than you because I believe this over you. And that is an insecurity that needs to be addressed because, in fact, I don't know, and I have met a lot of Christians that I felt were holy men. Okay? Sent by God to teach man the right way. And if you go into the old Bibles, the Morah, for example, it will state that at any given moment, there are 50 living saints on earth, or Christ-like individuals, and only 2 of them are for man, and the other 48 are doing God's will, and who knows what that's about, floating in a cave in the Himalayas or whatever. For me, I know that I don't know. I wasn't there during the moment of Christ, and while, I know that I would like to be like Christ-like as a relationship to myself. And that's where Ducky Mallard made the distinction between morals and ethics. He said, an ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife. A moral man won't. And that is the balance of things. And you never really get there as an absolute. What it is a process. Simon says, you can go halfway to the door. And what you do is focus on the door and you lose the journey. It's a process. And once you understand it from that perspective, or that way of looking at things, you take on personal power. And that's what it's all about, over fear.
Personal power. That's like what Castaneda wrote. Castaneda wrote quite a lot about that.
There were 4 enemies of man. 4. There was, fear, power. Then you started seeing things more clearly. And that became an enemy, thinking that you had, were seeing things clearly. Unfortunately, I currently enjoy the fourth enemy, old age.
Wow.
I love such data, man.
Well,
did you know, this is a little known secret. Did you know that I helped co-author Tales of Power? I was hired by Simon & Schuster and paid.
Really? Tales of Power. And
Nagwal is that which cannot be known. Reality is that which cannot be known. Tonal is knowledge. And there's only one place in the tree of life where knowledge rules. And that's above Christ consciousness in the missing Sephiroth called Doth. The Sea of Karansan, where it's a stone underwater that you would leap out into a raging stream, touch on this stone underwater, and leap over to the other side in balance. It's a temporary place. Knowledge through wisdom.
Tales of Power. That was one of I think it might be my favorite book. That one is a summary, isn't it, of the teachings overall?
That's correct. Giving you rules of behavior. Never let them see you sweat. Like a warrior doesn't show that one arm. Look at that one arm. This arm here has no bone in it. I've got titanium in every limb in my body, and nobody knows that. I make a lot of noise going through an airport.
That's always fun. Oh gosh. Well, I think two of my favorite lines from Castaneda, like ones that have really helped me, was I love the one line, a warrior does not indulge. It's just basically like you have to be aware of and not indulge.
Balance of addiction, the balance of things. That is the distinction between addiction and a tool, is a very fine gray area. And it's not precisely defined. It changes. And one has to monitor and have internal dialogue so that you could, in the varieties of psychedelic experience, Leary says the Buddhists have 4 reasons for getting high, and only one of them is for escape and recreation. There are 3 other reasons. That's in his Varieties of Psychedelic Experience, which I consider a book on magic. Bordeaux Thidal. That's the Tibetan Buddhist. I'll bet you that crashed spaceship on the other side of the moon is Buddhist. What do you think?
I have no idea.
I know exactly. What I'm trying to say is, I've been to Tibet. This hat is Nepal. It's a Nepalese type of design. My friends put a logo up here rather than Dorja, double Dorja or something, which is a sacred geometry that you use as a meditation cap for Nepal. I've climbed those mountains and been there and done that, trying to seek answers, and have come to the conclusion, like Christ, he spent 20 years in India seeking answers. Those are the lost years of Jesus. They're Emmanuel, looking for a balance in what is the distinction between the right and the left brain.
Well, the Nepalese, they have butter teas. They definitely are on the path to enlightenment, because that will get you halfway there, just that alone. I love it. Just salt and butter. It's hot. You drink it. Oh my gosh. If you're vegan, especially, give it a try. It'll change your life.
I'm no longer a vegan. I've discovered I'm type O negative, which in blood, that means I'm an alien, right? And I have to take certain forms of meat for the enzymes. I'm not able to make them out of beans and rice, like type A or something like that. O negative. So blood types often dictate your diet more than you might realize. I'm very healthy for my age. I'm not Norm Shealy. That is my goal, is to be like Dr. Norm Shealy. When I'm 96, I would like to be like Norm. Now there's a man that is walking his talk. He's healthy, he's aware, he's alive, he's 96, and I have a feeling that Pearson and Shaw, that wrote the life extension and life extension uh, addendum, were students of mine. And when I was doing the studies in neurotransmitters and for the military, and life extension, there is a book out by Ward Dean, Dr. Ward Dean. He's Surgeon General for the Marine Corps. And he wrote a book titled Biological Aging Mechanisms, Clinical Approach. There's a really good book for you because he has outlined every single way we monitor aging. And at the end of his book, his conclusion is every single process that we measure now for aging is reversible. Not stoppable, reversible. What age do you want to be?
It often seems like we don't live long enough. Like if you look at the biblical times, people lived to be 900 and such. If we're looking at that, I've always felt that I'm okay with living however long I live. I just want to be, live long and strong and powerful and be good than just vaporize one day. I don't. But the thing is,
well, then live long and prosper.
Live long, live long,
exactly.
live long, prosper, than just vaporize. Yeah. Enjoy life. So, what gets me is, it seems like we don't live long enough because it just seems like you start figuring it out and then you die.
Well,
and you have to reboot.
Enemy, old age. You're too old to do anything about what you've discovered.
Yeah, you get a little wisdom, and then you reboot and you're a baby again. And it's like, oh crap, So, well, I guess an autobiography of a yogi.
What that baby said in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, smoking a cigar. Oh crap!
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it seems like Autobiography of a Yogi, Swami Yogananda, when he was born, he mentioned that he remembered his previous lifetime in being an adult, and he was frustrated being a baby because he couldn't move and he had to learn to walk and talk again. But he supposedly remembered he had a continuity of experience through incarnations. So either we need to start doing that, or we just need to start living longer.
Theosophical Society, you've gone through Theosophical Society and Manly Palmer Hall and those groups, Quest Books, and right. Is that correct?
Just Autobiography of a Yogi. That would be it. So
you should read Manly Palmer Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Oh, you know what? I have not gotten through it all. I've gotten about, that thing is big. So I'm working on it. I honestly am. That is so deep. I am working on getting through that book. So yeah,
that is another interesting viewpoint. Frater Akkad was, I was the one that inherited Frater Akkad's library. And in OTO systems, in the Book of the Law, chapter 2 of 3 chapters, there is a statement says, add, divide, multiply, and understand, and one will follow. And now they used to think that Frater Akkad, Samuel Jones, was the follower because he did the Tree of Life in 2 directions and called that the anatomy of the body of God. And what I have done is wrote the Tree of Life in N dimensions. And I've written 3 books called The Diamond Body, Electromagic, and Yogatronics, which are the works I did for the military in video feedback systems after I set up the Menninger Foundation in Topeka, Kansas. I have a very large biofeedback laboratory that I use to train Navy SEALs. And 50 years later, now I'm trying to learn how to envision in my mind's eye certain geometries that allow resonant cavity oscillation of me taking psyche into matter. And that's why it's called Electromagic and Yogatronics, where I use Mora and Indomet, German acupuncture, non-invasive wave shaping on the top of my head, which I will call the wire. And Norman Spinrad wrote a sci-fi movie called Little Heroes, where you can dial in what sex you want to be today, what personality you want to change yourself in just by dialoguing with electrical currents using neurotransmitters. And now I'm doing it with visualization exercises, what we call creative visualization, where you envision certain geometries in your mind's eye and you go into a resonant cavity oscillation, very similar to what artists are now depicting in n-dimensional physics.
So that's the books you have, and they're on your site, and we'll definitely go through some of the content you have on your site so we can sell lots of it. You're making lots of money.
Well, it isn't making money.
No. I know it.
It's about actually giving you a concept that you then integrate and write your own book on.
Oh, I like it. So it's the Diamond Body, Electromagic, and Yogatronic, and all those books are on.
No, those books have not been published yet. I have over 40. I know. I've got 40 manuscripts. I haven't even begun to show the universe yet, ready to go.
Okay, well, yeah, the Diamond Body, Electromagic, and Yogatronic, those
are unpublished works on video feedback system that will accompany the end game when I come out with my 12-volume holistic Kabbalah on path working. Right now, my book on tarot is called The Magical and Ritual Use of Metaphor, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living. There are 22 basic stories in the big city. You're either possessed, which means you have only one story, or you have more than one story, in which case you're complex.
I like that. Wait a second. Okay.
Okay. Now, you can identify what storyboards are going on inside you. Each one has an ending. Is that how you want it to end? And if you don't, you change the movie.
Change the movie. So you mentioned it's on tarot, and you mentioned that. So if you have one story, you're possessed. If you have multiple stories,
which
then
most of us do, then you're complex.
Then you're complex. So
usually, most people have basically 5 to 12 different storyboards going on inside them. Each one has an ending, like Psyche at the Well of Souls. These are mythologies and the technology that the Greek used.
Wow. So if I like that. Oh gosh.
I'm trying to integrate magic with physics because, and not Scientology. I'm the physicist that didn't blow himself up, and I'm trying to understand what path working is, how it might work with visualization and taking psyche into matter.
So you mentioned what was that book called? Did you mention you had a book on tarot?
It's coming out right after the non-local mind. The non-local mind in a holographic universe is coming out in the first or second month of week of November. It'll probably come out November 30th, unfortunately, just for Christmas. And then just after Christmas will be the magical and ritual use of metaphor. Right after that, the next book after that is the new small family farm for the 21st century, of which that will be grid down situation, vertical aquaculture, and your herbal pharmacy, that kind of thing.
Wow, I'm looking forward to non-local mind for sure. And then magical and ritual use of metaphor, and that will mention tarot in there. I like that.
Well,
right?
It's got 22 chapters.
22 chapters.
22 basic.
And that's how many in the major arcana, right? There's 22.
There you go. I believe the man's got bungo.
I do. I got lots.
A path on the tree of life.
I got lots of bongo. That's amazing. I like that these are coming out. You're creating this content, and it's great.
And look what I've done also with ESP induction through forms of self-hypnosis. That was the first protocol of 8 protocols I developed for Navy SEALs. I measured their ESP because I wanted them to think with the gut. I wanted them to be intuitive. That is, SEAL Teams 1, 2, and 3 were chosen by their intuition. The power tools for the 21st century were the 8 basic protocols in terms of how to change your belief system like you would a pair of clothing. using brain drivers. Yeah, I have brain drivers now that are written about in Power Tools, available as download tools for training the mind.
Yeah, that's actually on your site. It's the brain. Let's talk about some of the content you have up there, since it's there and people can grab it. So while you're listening, people, go get this. It's over at richardallenmiller.com and linked in the show notes, of course. But
my website has been riddled with hackers putting code in everything, and I'm going to most likely have to redo my entire website. However, my bookstore is still up and going right now. That's where you'll find all my books. If you will find, I have 80, 90 pages of posts I've been doing for more than 15 years on the internet.
There's a lot of content up there. Yeah, definitely check that out. But you mentioned the Brain Driver Starters Kit, and I have to admit, I bought it. I downloaded it. I haven't started listening to it yet. I'm gonna, I promise, real soon. But it's called the Brain Driver Starters Kit, and I like this. So
the problem you're going to have with brain drivers is that once you start the program, within 3 weeks or less, you're going to go through what's called a bifurcation, where your brain resets itself. And during that period, and I've warned you on that in the Brain Driver, there will be about a 7-hour period where you're hallucinating like crazy, like on LSD. That's as your brain is resetting itself and going back to its natural form prior to it being programmed the way it is right now. And once you do that, you will have the brain of a meditator that has been meditating for 30 years. You will have better control of your brain. But during that bifurcation, it's a real creepy event. And just as a warning, FYI, there will be a 7-hour period or so where you're not sure what's going on. Just be aware that that's your brain resetting itself back into its original position when you were born.
It sounds like a normal state.
I talk about that in Power Tools, which is a book you might want to read. There's ebook versions of it, so it's cheap if you want, or you're in Europe. My problem is I have had to completely change everything I'm doing, because all of my download parts are going sideways with code errors. I'm being attacked. No, imagine that.
You definitely mentioned that. Yeah, you have a lot of. Yeah, you're in quite a tough.
I'm a target.
Spot. Yeah, you're a target. Oh.
That's okay. It's okay. It probably, I don't know who's doing it or why. I'm guessing I know something I don't know, and I'm a threat to somebody.
No, it's I understand that very well. Well, when you mentioned the whole bifurcation, the reset, what you're going to go through, I mean, that just kind of sounds like my usual state of mind. So maybe I won't notice.
Oh yeah, you just slide through it. Yeah.
I just feel
another day at the office.
Yeah, I just feel a little more out of it than usual. Oh my goodness. Well, so would it be good to? So you also have where you can get on your site, you can get all 3 Power Tools books. So it'd be better to work through Power Tools first and then do the Brain Driver Starter Kit?
The Power Tools has a whole chapter on how to use the brain drivers and, that kind of thing. The instructions and all of that come with it. You have a bunch of, I think, 4 or 5 discs for that $20. I mean, it's
yeah.
But the Power Tools book does have a whole chapter on that. If you don't want to get that, just let me know and I'll send you that chapter so that you can queue up on it if you want to. You just let me know. I'm not after your money. What I'm after is you using the equipment and writing your own books on what happens next.
And you also have something I like up there, and I've started watching these, the Urban Survival Skill series, and also the Training Your ESP series.
Matt Stein, that was Matt Stein and I doing workshops, 2-day workshops around the country. And what we did is when we hit Reno, we filmed it with several cameras and several mics. So we had 16 hours of workshop that we now have on Vimeo that you can rent and download. And the problem is Matt died Christmas Eve. And his knowledge base with mine made a complete package. He's more linear, and had what generator you want to use over that generator, that kind of thing. And I was teaching you how to use your intuitions more so that you were more guided by yourself in terms of finding truth for yourself. And, not following my lead or his lead, but doing it for yourself. And that's the other part of surviving. I'm going to say some things about survival. It will be your neighbor that most likely saves your life. If you have your water together, for everyone in your household, animals and all of that for 3 days, and a backup plan within the first day for replacing the water, you already have fallen into the 50% that are going to live. Pandemics, earthquakes, radiation from Fukushima, or just the New Madrid fault line has 21 Daiichi-like reactors that are all leaking, and they each take a full year to power down. You just don't turn the switch off on something like that. If we have a grid down situation, the amount of damage that that's going to do to the Midwest, making it uninhabitable for the next 100,000 years, heads up. As a physicist, I would be remiss if I didn't say you need to turn the switch off. How many nuclear power plants are in Arizona right now?
We have one big one that I know of. I don't know of smaller ones, but we have one
big. You need to start lobbying now for getting that one turned down. Because if we have a grid down situation, and that could occur at any moment, we're talking about another meltdown like Fukushima. And we have never had anything quite like Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island or Indian Point up on the Hudson, like what's going to happen at Fukushima. And you've got 21 Daiichi-like reactors now powered up on the New Madrid fault line. And right now, my buddy, not my bunker, but a buddy of mine, has a bunker that has tomography and is seeing Yellowstone as far as Ohio right now, today, underground. And so we are going to have a grid down situation. And if those power plants, and it takes a full year to power them down, there it is. That's my warning.
Yeah, that series you have is definitely worth watching. We're checking out the urban survival skills and also the ESP skills, and there tends to be a feeling in general. What we call it here is the metaphysics of apocalyptic expectations. Like,
yeah, there it is. Once you get your mind's high, that's what makes it real, and that's why you need to train your mind, and why path working is going to move you away from one movie and changing the movie to the other. Your brain, your upper mind, this brain up here, this is here to make all your beliefs true. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it. It is a 4-dimensional hologram of 5 space. It's in a liquid crystal or amorphous semiconductor. It's a 4-dimensional hologram of 5 space. And if you can go to different places in the brain, that's what brain drivers a lot teach you how to do. You have a different view of reality, and you can change the movie. There is, in the Wernicke correction, down near the reticular activating center, a place in hypnosis where everyone taken to that place in the brain has a memory of having worked on the planet Mars. That's called the Wernicke correction, Mars Project. Look it up.
When you mentioned path working, and I like to get a little bit into what that is, but also you mentioned you changed the movie, and you changed the movie through path working. So I'd like to get a little bit of a definition of what path working is, but also when you change that movie, are you changing it for you, like your timeline, you're part of the fractal, I guess you could say, or are you changing it for everyone? Because to me it seems that the idea of saving the world or changing the world, that's not really our problem. Like, we change our timeline, our version of everything is what you're really concerned about.
Your answer, by the way, is of course Yes. All of it.
As I would expect.
Well, you have to understand, every single soul that's here has a role to play. And while one of us gets off the couch a little sooner than the other, that's just simply about time. That's not real.
Arbitrary, like a belief system. And I love that you say that, belief systems are arbitrary, because it's very, very disarming in a cosmic judo kind of way.
It requires responsibility. Man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain.
There's something that Aleister Crowley said along those lines, where I think he developed thelema, right, back in the 1900s.
Thelema is a Greek word, telema, for will. Will is your purpose. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the will. Love is the law. Love under will. Will, your path, your purpose, takes precedence over being nice to other people. Love, yeah.
Just ask the main character in Blacklist, and he'll explain that to you. But thou hast no right. But you mentioned responsibility, and he said that thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that, and no other shall say nay. Yeah. And for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered anyway. That at the beginning really sums it up. Thou hast no right but to do thy will.
If you want to read more easily, Regardi, others have, broken his dialogue. You have to realize he's 1902 to 19. And by the way, this is another very important point. A teacher can only take you as far as they themselves have been. And Crowley, like in Tombstone, died as a drug addict in Hastings.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, he was addicted to opiates, just like most of America is now.
And that's a big one. Let's actually talk about that real quick before we move on. But I'll do that line one more time, because I think it's very powerful, and it matches what you mentioned about we have responsibility. And I like what he said. Crowley said, "Thou hast no right, but do thy will. Do that, and no other shall say nay." I mean, that's powerful.
Purpose.
That's your purpose.
That means an AI, for example, can't see you, because you are essentially in harmony with everything, and there are no algorithms that will identify and have you stand out.
And Aleister Crowley called that your true will. You're attached to that true will.
What you're here to discover, your purpose. That's correct, your purpose. True will.
So we might come back to that, but opioids. So what's going on with that? So they took out Crowley, opioids, and something I'm seeing, because we're seeing it here in Arizona. So here in Arizona, for some reason, we have lots of wrong way drivers on the highway, a lot of unique stuff going on here. And you can see, if a person drives around, if you drive around, you see people on opioids. I mean, and if you're living, if you're alive and you're seeing, what is with America? What's going on with the opioids?
Bliss centers having to do with false gods, basically, in what is important and what is your true will. Everything. I'm not a Jesuit. I don't believe in pain as a whipping myself into a frenzy. It is a manner of altered state that I aspire toward to accomplish my goals. I am in discovery, like each of us, and will never, ever be perfect, because I'm human. That was called puer wounding and Ulysses scarring. It is a storyboard, one of the songs, where you realize that you're mortal, that you're no longer a god, like Ulysses scarring. Puer wounding, ow, I'm hurt, I'm damaged, something's wrong, I'm no longer perfect, I'm no longer immortal, I'm now a human being. Puer wounding, Ulysses scarring is one of the storyboards.
And I love it. And there's Chiron in astrology. I think Chiron's I forget what Chiron is, but Chiron in astrology That is the wounded healer, and your wound is your strength. That's part of your purpose is to heal.
That is the Lucy. That's right. There's also, coffee, tea, and me, the high flyer. There's lots of different storyboards in the magical and ritual use of metaphor, archetypal gods in daily living. How to see the storyboards as a metaphor. And it was Gregory Bateson, one of my teachers, that said, what is your metaphor? But to serve your paradox. And so I have a paradox out in my meadow.
Everyone needs that, along with 3 alpacas and a micro donkey.
There it is.
And then you're really set.
Watching the flock. That's what
exactly.
That's what it does.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
That's the rule.
Well, you mentioned 10-year paradox, and to me, I think that when a person gets a bit of awareness and humbly is seeking to become more wise, it seems like one of the first steps is being fully aware and living and having no issue with paradox. You hang out with it and go, I believe in paradox. I believe things that contradict one another, but it's not an issue for me. Paradox is like, it's normal. It doesn't contradict. Does that make any sense?
It has that. What a paradox is why we have evolved into memes. The idea of chunking down or chunking upward, like a fractal. Mendel brought Julia and May patterns in the mathematics. Like you have the physical plane, IQ, then you have EQ, how you feel about the physical plane. That's why your dreams and all your inner dialogue, it's not about things. It's about how you feel about it. Your feeling.
Oh, I like that. I think that would help a lot of people to point that out. So if your dreams, when you are interpreting them or where you try to seek a meaning to it, the meaning is not so much that a clown was chasing you with a chainsaw. That, don't worry about that. It's how did you feel?
He was a killer clown from space. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so, so how did you feel about that? So really, right. Maybe that's the real crux of
Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. How did you feel? What was that about? I like that. Yeah.
That is where the importance of keeping a magical memory, a dialogue, a diary, like Ira Progoff, honest journaling. It's a snapshot of the moment, and when you go back from the future and look back that moment in the magical memory, it brings you back to that moment as a time travel back into the past of that moment, puts the brain back into a specific hologram of that moment. And that's what magical memory is about, and why honest journaling is so critical in forming an inner dialogue with yourself.
I like that. And so it's basically just journaling daily. It's basically like the old school diary.
Yeah, it's just forming a dialogue with yourself, and the language will evolve so that all of a sudden you'll know exactly what you're talking about because it's your language and it's unique to you. People look at your diary and won't get the implications that will be from you because of the emotional content of the description. And that's what you're supposed to be dialoguing. The feelings, not the what happened.
Dialogue the feelings. I like that. So along with each of us, of course, being unique and each of us being our own religion, our own path that we gather as we go along, we also create our own language then by journaling. So that helps.
Inner dialogue. That's
inner correct. Dialogue. I like that.
There's another book I'd like to recommend by Stephen Kaplan Williams called The Jungian Senoi Dream Manual, where he talks about the importance of lucid dreaming, which actually has more content than consciousness to reality. And when you learn how to use that state, that is the beginning of taking psyche, your imagination, and placing it into the physical world, making it real. Psyche into matter. It's done with certain dream states.
Wow. So yeah, I think after we're done talking, I may go through that bifurcation where I feel like I'm hallucinating for. Why wait? I'll just get started right now.
Well, just enjoy the ride. There's not much else you can do, but hang on. It's going to be a bumpy one.
Oh, I know. Well, I hope it's not too bumpy, but
buckle up. Yeah.
Oh, God, I know. Buckle up. Oh my gosh. Well, it's something I've never tried, but I will maybe one day. Is I have heard that when you are, let's say you're tripping, you're on some psychedelic, and if it becomes too much, if you go, okay, this is a bit much, I'm uncomfortable. I've heard this stated as fact by someone who did it. Now, I'll have to test this, but if you go into a pyramid, so if you have like a pyramid created and it's aimed correctly, it's made, then that will actually reduce the effects of the psychedelics.
What reduces is your belief system, not what you do, but how you do it.
Gotcha.
And a bad trip is a good trip, is a moderate trip. When you take a psychedelic, you are basically taking a toxin that has a look-alike, similar neurotransmitter that your brain produces. And your brain freaks out. This is homeopathy thing. This is where it will then overproduce to flood those sites so that the toxin can't take over. And you'll find that LSD or microdosing with mushrooms will be in the urine, muscimol, muscarine, psilocybin will be in the urine and gone from the body. And that the next 10 hours of hallucinations are basically from your own brain chemistry. And what those brain chemistries are neurotransmitters. There's a hierarchy of them that are written up in the workbook 1 of Power Tools at the chapter 8, what's called, what do they call the neurotransmitters of Timothy Leary. Actually, he called that neurologic, and he identified 8 different hierarchies of neurotransmitters. And what those do is they're resonant cavity oscillators that dialogue with subtle bodies outside the physical body, like the structured water in microtubule, or what you would call chi. There are probably, I'm going to postulate, 8 subtle bodies that have, in previous epochs in the Upanishads, been talked about as higher states of consciousness having to do with Janta state, Jhanta. And John Curtis Gowan did an ontology of mystical states in his Trance, Art, and Creativity, also discussed in Power Tools as the primary protocols I use to make Navy SEALs Superman. Understanding these processes allow you access to universes where you can do things you can't do in the physical. Like an ant can lift 10 times its weight, like being on, I don't know, methamphetamine. You can have the strength of 10. These states of consciousness are semi-related as altered states, and that's what I'm doing now. My turkeys are back. I'm going to say goodbye to them one more time so they don't disrupt my birds.
Go get them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna eat you. Yeah, and it's the young male that wants to eat me. Eat me. And guess what just came in? A gray fox.
Really?
Looking at Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, I love the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Wow, you're living in a magical place. I mean, that's definitely our goal, is to live somewhere where we have all of that in the backyard every day. That's
every moment is a drama. And that peregrine falcon, when he looks at the squirrel, he does it from below my balcony, not above it, because the squirrel is a sail all out, as an antenna looking around for, the predator, and he never bothers to look below him any more than a deer looks up at a bow hunter.
I know they truly don't. They truly don't. And it's funny. I found that when I've been like in the woods with deer, that they only see you when you look straight at them. So if you see them in the corner of your eye, if you don't focus, you can.
That's exactly correct. And welcome to some of the new technologies they teach our military in terms of how to go through a jungle, not be seen.
Ooh, I like that. And how to walk down a city street and not be seen too.
Oh, that's a ranger or recon learning how to work with shadows. It's terrible. And to have that be part of your awareness. I don't want to grow up.
You don't have to.
Being a little kid, and you want to see my train set? Here, let me show you my train set. You know, I just having to be aware of the terrible people around me. It's terrible. I don't want to do that.
I understand. Well, that's the thing. When we say not growing up, when I think about it, well, people who don't grow up, that's just kind of like, stunted development. And that happens around like teens or early 20s for most people. That's when it stops and they're that person the rest of their life.
Return. There it is. Every 28 years, you either die on the cross, go to jail, or move on. Change the lifestyle.
Yeah. Well,
Saturn return.
Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah, Saturn returns. Saturn's nobody's friend, that icy, cold planet. Oh, my gosh. But I guess we need it, but it definitely is a very harsh teacher. But I find that, the innocence of a child, the innocence of stunted development is not very impressive. But for the individual who has grown up but still has that innocence, that's what's beautiful to me.
That's what we're all seeking in our form of being. The one that did that most was Alec Guinness in the movie Being There.
Being There, okay.
You have not seen that with Shirley MacLaine? And it is a classic. It was his last movie.
Being There. I'll note that. Being There. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, check out Alex Guinness in the movie Being There with Shirley MacLaine. And it's a wonderful movie. It's
We'll probably watch that tonight.
At the end of the movie, when they're electing him president of the United States, he walks across water because he doesn't know he can't. Oh
my gosh, there's a great movie, Men Who Stare at Goats. So we're gonna watch the movie you just mentioned tonight. Men Who Stare at
Goats is 10 years later from Navy intel. That's Army intel, and the wrong goat died. You have a general trying to run through a wall. What's wrong with that? Oh, I didn't have my right head mentality.
Yeah.
Army is an oxymoron.
It's quite a neat movie. It's always one of my favorites. I like it. I mean, it is very funny when the guy tries to run through the wall. He doesn't make it, but somebody later does make it. It's quite fun. And my gosh,
I have a TARDIS.
It sounds easier than trying to run through a wall. Well, here's a question for you. This is something I've been pondering is, what is the luck of the draw that some people have who don't fall for the manufactured reality?
You mean better karma.
Just better karma.
Jost. That's what the Chinese call Jost.
Jost. J-U-S-T? Just
something like I don't know how it's spelled.
So Jost, I like that because you know what I'm talking about. It's hard for me to articulate it, but some of us seem to have the luck of the draw, like we don't fall for it. So, and the thing is, like that path of wisdom, that path of awareness, it's like going towards the center of the labyrinth. Like Joseph Campbell said, you go through the labyrinth thinking you're going to find a monster, but you find yourself. Well, as we're going through that labyrinth, sure, you take paths that don't work, but it doesn't matter. You turn around and you keep at it. Well, it seems like most people aren't doing that. There's no gravity
they're at war with themselves. That's why they're coming from a place of wounding. David Bowie in Labyrinth smells bad.
Smells bad. I haven't watched that movie in quite a while. Does he say that? Oh, I have to watch it.
No, but the org does when he's trying to go through the lab. Smells bad. You can tell when something's not right. Doesn't smell right.
And the thing
all in metaphor.
Yeah, and the thing is, for us lucky people who keep moving towards that center, even when we try to go down, so we go down a wrong path, and it stops, it ends. Well, even if you beat your head against it for a while, going, "This is gonna work," life luckily just somehow gets you back on track. So even when you insist on screwing up, you get saved.
Your truck hits you until you get your attention.
But it does get your attention because we've all wanted something.
Wakey, I believe is the way Crocodile Dundee said. Oh, you call that a knife? This is what I call a knife. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Wakey.
Oh, exactly. Because we've all, as myself, where you sort of get, mad at God. You go, I want this to work, and you try to envision it and intention it, and it doesn't. And then like 3 months later, you're like thanking God for not listening. Oh, thanks, because I know I was mad and scolding you, and I wanted what I wanted, but now I realize that would have been my death. But even though I wanted it with all my will, you corrected me.
Be things you want and things you need. And when you're in prison, you're out of toilet paper. Things you want and things you need. There it is. Read it and leave.
Oh, gosh. It reminds me of hope is nice, but reality keeps you alive, or something like that. Oh, my gosh. So let's see. We're getting close to noon.
I know. You're starting to ramble a little bit. It's good, though. It's all good, and I am available to speak again and again on different subjects. I have an unusual way of looking at them. I'm a scientist, so I have to be true to my sciences, even though I know that is an illusion. Science is the leading religion of the world today. That's what it is. If a scientist says it, it's got to be true.
Oh,
let there be light. And the physicist reached over and went click, and it was good.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, as we round up, because I have like endless things I could keep asking you about, but this is a great place to sort of start to trail off. We've gone over some of your books and some of your content, and definitely people check it out. I'm going through Richard Allen Miller's work, and I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to.
I'm hoping to leave some serious footprints for you to write your own books, because that's ultimately the evolution of man's consciousness. It's not about me. It's about us, and each of us getting off the couch at some point and doing the work we know we're supposed to do. And each of us is different.
And is it people who are, let's say, willfully not doing that work? That could be said to be maybe an aspect of the opioid issues we have today. So many people on different opioids because it seems so prevalent, and it seems like ultimately is that.
What has happened is that I'm going to give you a 5G rap now.
Okay, hit me. Boom.
Okay. So early on, the prisons were rampant with opiate problems, and they went in and beta tested antipsychotics. And now all the prisons are no longer rampant with opiate problems. It's with antipsychotics. And then when they gave them to our children, 1 in 10, 2 in 10 overreacted and became psychotic. Using synthetic telepathy, they then placed voices in their head, and there was always a second shooter at first. That's the individual that goes in and taps them with scopolamine. And that second shooter later is not in the news reports anymore. Yeah, I heard shots over here too, not over there, but both locations. Yeah, that's the second shooter part that is required for an end game weapon using 5G technology. If they put 5G on every house in your neighborhood, an AI can identify which individual is unstable and on antipsychotics. And now you have law enforcement without law. And how many people in your neighborhood are now on antipsychotics? And that, imagine being able to go in with a single individual and tapping them with scopolamine, using 5G to identify who you are and putting voices in their head using synthetic telepathy. And the next thing you know, that is a potential endgame weapon. Now, 5G in itself has dosimetry. That's Dr. Beale's work, as LD50 ratio. It's actually toxic. And what will ultimately be happening is that the public is going to be so outraged with it that, like Paradise, that was a smart meter that went off, and that blue laser light that you were saying was when it leaped from one smart meter to the other, going unstable. And basically, the 1,200 people that are missing are most likely in the ash. And right now, they're doing that. They're pouring that everywhere in California with the different fires that are plasma-like. And the end game is to give California to China for part of the trade deficit. And ultimately, we had casualties, refugees up here in Grants Pass from Paradise. The stories they said were terrible, and why now Futati and other small towns in California are outlawing it, and why counties in Oregon, like Curry County, it's illegal. And what you're going to see is countries are going to ban it, and eventually 5G will be illegal. But it isn't that they didn't try, and they'll charge you to remove it next. Watch and see how that plays. PG&E has claimed no contest. 5G is an extremely unstable technology that could make a bunch of people a lot of money by charging on demand, being able to have your cell phone just redo itself rather than having it's not going to work. There are serious problems with it, and it has dosimetry, LD50 ratios. And so it will ultimately be outlawed, but it isn't like they didn't try. And the so-called European 9/11 that will happen shortly, that Olgard and some of the others are now predicting, will be to take the banking out, bring in a different kind of currency, barter, whatever. And when we have a grid down, you can count on parts of the Midwest no longer being habitable for man because of radiation from leaking nuclear power plants. And that's my prediction of what's going on next.
And those are good predictions. That sounds very valid. Well,
I'm very concerned.
Yeah. It seems that most people we know that can feel, I'm going to just call it that, awareness, feel, wisdom, feel. People who can feel all sense something. And it's like you mentioned in a previous interview, what is to come. I mean, everybody who is able seems tuned into it. We all have this feeling of expectation, but it's not really fear. It's just you feel it. There's an indicator right now of an event. And
by the way, if you buy any of my books and they are not dated and autographed by my autograph, it didn't come from mine. I appreciate anybody that can support my work. If you have any trouble getting my works, please call or write me and let me know. We are in a place of discovery, discovering ghost accounts and other kinds of creepy things I had no concept of before I started these investigations. And so it isn't about money. It's about trying to isolate and identify who's doing what right now. And any input is greatly appreciated. Truly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, as we wrap this up, I have to mention everybody, go to Richard Allen Miller, the website. Of course, that'll be in the show notes, and buy stuff. I can't wait to.
It's not about you. Thank you. Yes.
I just say because I'm really enjoying.
What I want is them to read it and integrate it and use it, and then come up with your own things, because that's what I'm after. Ultimately, is for you to carry your own path.
Definitely. Richard Allen Miller, it's been amazing. You definitely have created a path, and you continue to create a path. You're clearing a way that we can follow. And that's, I think, the most anybody can do. What more can we really do? There's that great holiday in India, and I don't remember what it's called, but where they thank the people, the saints, for leaving a path. Because if there wasn't one, we'd be screwed. So thanks for helping us not be screwed and making a path for us. And I'm following it. And I encourage everyone to check out your content and follow it too if it speaks to you. Thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure.
All right, you take care.
You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.